Thank you. Mr. Brady.
Chair and members of the panel, thank you for permitting us the opportunity to participate in this important investigation. We, by that I mean the Christian Congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses, would like to share with the inquiry our experience in doing our best to deal with this challenging issue. And we hope that our contribution will be of assistance to the inquiry as it makes recommendations for the better protection of children. In my brief remarks, I would like to summarize the policy of Jehovah's Witnesses as it relates to the broader issues that this investigation is examining, and also to briefly respond to some of the criticisms that you've already heard. Briefly, I would like to discuss the history as it relates to this issue. For over 35 years, the religious organization of Jehovah's Witnesses have alerted individual adherents and the public at large on the need to protect children from sexual abuse and to assist victims of this terrible crime. We've done so by publishing dozens of articles and videos in hundreds of languages and in tens of millions of copies. And some experts have noted that the literature that we produced in the beginning, the 1980s and the 1990s, were ahead of its time. Those early publications were the beginnings of our current child safeguarding policy. And we believe that they demonstrate our firm commitment to dealing with this issue. Our child protection policy has not stood still since then. Our core child protection documents were revised in 2018 and 2019. And we continue to review that policy. And may I assure you that we are open to suggestions on ways to improve and clarify that policy. Now, of course, for a child protection policy to be effective, it needs to be tailored to what an organization does. What do Jehovah's Witnesses do as a religious organization? Well, as a religion, we are family-focused. We do not sponsor any activity that separates children from parents. Each congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses holds 2 weekly religious services, one on a weeknight and one on the weekend. And each service lasts an hour and 45 minutes. Now, as part of that family focus, families attend the services together, with children and parents sitting together. One point I'd like to stress is that Jehovah's Witnesses believe that the Bible teaches that parents are responsible to provide religious training and education for their children. That is a core religious belief. And it's for that reason that congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses do not sponsor daycares, Sunday schools, youth groups, clubs, camps, overnight trips, or the like. And so we submit that our safeguarding policy, our protection policy, needs to be considered in the light of what we do, as indeed with other religions. Now, as far as the policy, we have read with concern the Lancashire judgment that was referred to earlier in the submissions by some of the other participants. On reading the judgment, it seems clear that the judge did not have before her all of the policy documents of Jehovah's Witnesses. And I don't propose to address that judgment in my submissions, but I do encourage you, Chair and panel, to look at the first supplementary statement of Mr. Gillies, which addresses that judgment in detail. Our current child protection policy is implemented in 4 core documents. The first is the policy itself. The current version is dated April 2018, and it's readily available on our official website, jw.org, in dozens of languages. The second is the May 2019 issue of the Watchtower, which is the principal religious journal of Jehovah's Witnesses. And that magazine contained 3 articles that discussed the policy in detail. It was discussed, those articles were discussed in 3 religious services by all congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses in England and Wales in July 2019. And I think it's important to underscore that article, the fact that that article was produced, emphasizes itself that Jehovah's Witnesses do not feel they're immune from the problem of child sexual abuse. The fact that it has happened is one of the reasons why the article was produced and was studied by all congregations to discuss this frank subject. The third core document that Jehovah's Witnesses have produced as part of their protection policy is the October 2019 edition of the Elders Handbook, Shepherd the Flock of God. And that handbook includes Chapter 14, which gives specific direction to congregation elders how they should respond to an allegation of child sexual abuse. Finally, referring to the submissions of Counsel for the Inquirer in the opening, we would like to underscore that as a religious organization, our response to allegations of child sexual abuse is coordinated on a national level by the Britain Branch Office of Jehovah's Witnesses, and in particular by experienced elders who work in the service department of the branch office. So the fourth core document that is part of our policy is the January 2019 edition of the Guidelines for Branch Office Service Desks. And those guidelines provide guidance for experienced elders in the service department to assist congregation elders in responding to allegations of child abuse. And in response to some of the criticism you've heard a moment ago, those guidelines specifically address these subjects: reporting allegations of child abuse to the statutory authorities, ensuring victims are provided with pastoral support, and imposing strict restrictions on offenders if they're not expelled or if someone with that history wants to become a member of the congregation. Now, in concluding, there are three aspects of that policy that I would like to just briefly touch on, and again, which I believe responds to the broader issues that the inquiry is addressing. The first aspect is prevention. Of course, the best prevention is education and limiting the opportunities for abuse. Well, for decades, we have endeavored to address both of these issues, as I've touched on earlier. One, by providing a variety of educative materials to assist parents in educating their children on the crime of sexual abuse. Also, we don't sponsor any activities that separate children from their parents, and as a result, it minimizes the opportunities for abuse. The second key aspect of our safeguarding policy is how we respond to allegations of abuse. Now, our current policy makes it clear that anyone who learns of an allegation of child sexual abuse has the absolute right to immediately report it to the statutory authorities, and no one should discourage them from doing so. But our policy also directs that when congregation elders learn about an allegation of abuse, they must immediately telephone the Britain branch office to ensure that allegations that need to be reported to the statutory authorities are reported to the statutory authorities. In addition, if a child is in danger of abuse, the elders will be directed themselves to make the report to the statutory authorities, even if there is no statutory duty to do so. If I could underscore that, if a child is at risk of abuse, the elders themselves will be directed to report it, even in the absence of a mandatory reporting law. Thus, any suggestion that we have a culture or rules that prohibit reporting abuse, or that we ostracize those who report abuse, we submit is simply not true. It's false. In the Republic of Ireland, there is a mandatory reporting law, and Jehovah's Witnesses fully comply with what the law requires. After ensuring allegations are reported to the authorities, the elders will then provide pastoral support to the victim and the victim's family. And that pastoral support, as part of the family focus of Jehovah's Witnesses, will be to pray with and for the victim, to read comforting Bible passages that, for Jehovah's Witnesses, will provide comfort and hope and strength to them. But the elders are not health professionals. They don't purport to be so. And they will remind the victim and the victim's family of the need for them to decide, to consider obtaining professional support. The third key point I would like to emphasize of our policy is this. If the offender is not expelled, and that's a religious issue, or if a person who has that history wants to become one of Jehovah's Witnesses, the branch office will impose strict restrictions on the offender. Those restrictions remain in place indefinitely, and they will follow the offender even if he moves to another congregation. In most cases, an offender would be expelled. But even if he's not, those restrictions apply in all cases, not just to an elder, to a faith leader, but to anyone who has committed the offense, even including a congregant, or other religions refer to as a lay member or a parishioner. Among those restrictions are these. The offender will not qualify for any responsibilities, duties, or tasks in the congregation for decades, if ever. Secondly, the elders will meet with the parents of all minor children in the congregation and any others that may move in afterwards to specifically warn them that their children should never be left alone with the offender. They will also direct the parents to specific material we have published on protecting children from abuse. Now, those are in addition to restrictions that the statutory authorities may impose. Once those steps are cared for, what happens next? Well, child sexual abuse is not only a serious crime, but for many religions, and certainly for Jehovah's Witnesses, it is a gross sin before God. So when child abuse has been committed, the elders will then determine, after the steps I've outlined are cared for, whether the offender, if he's one of Jehovah's Witnesses, whether he should be excommunicated, expelled, or disfellowshipped, as Jehovah's Witnesses will refer to it. What is the role of the victim in that ecclesiastical process? Elders will receive information from the victim, if the victim's an adult, or from the victim's parents, if the victim is a child, about the allegation. That information can be provided in writing or in a private session, as the victim feels comfortable with. The adult victim can be accompanied by a mature confidant. But the elders do not require the victim to confront the offender in that ecclesiastical process. Well, ultimately, the elders will decide based on scriptural doctrine and standards whether the offender should be expelled. And so we respectfully submit that whether an offender is expelled and the religious process that elders follow to make that determination is in that sense, it's beyond the scope of the issues this inquiry is examining. It is strictly a religious process. Well, Chair and members of the panel, we look forward to the opportunity to assist this inquiry in this investigation and to provide accurate information about our child protection policy, practices, and procedures. Thank you.
Thank you.